Hi everybody, I'm Sandy Simpson and I am the keeper of Avalon's Grove. Avalon's Grove is in central Alberta. It's just southwest of Edmonton in the beautiful country of Canada. And I am here today to talk a little bit about bioregional correspondence for making loose incense. We make ancestor incense here at Avalon's Grove, and we've been using it for a long time, and it's an excellent incense. And I use everything from my land. So I'm going to share with you today what I do, and we're going to talk a little bit about some other correspondences as well that are growing around us. And we're down here by the sacred spring, and this is where I do a lot of my harvesting. So next to me here is this beautiful spruce tree, and we have what we call the grandfathers down here, and they're 4 great big huge guardian spruce trees that are a blessing on my land that I've gotten to know over the last decade. So with the spruce tree, the things that we use in this incense is the resin, which is this stuff here that you see. You see, and here's some more up here. So when the tree is injured, this is a band-aid. So you don't take it right down to the tree, you only take the surface part, and a lot of times you'll see it in big globs, and it's easy just to snap a little tiny bit off when it's dried. You can also harvest it when it's soft, but it's really sticky and makes a great glue, so just be warned. So we put it out to dry until it's hard, because you cannot grind it when it's soft. It'll gum up whatever you're using and ruin it. So this is the main ingredient in our incense. The second ingredient that we use, actually no, we're going to talk about the third ingredient. So the third ingredient are the spruce needles themselves. So these are from fallen branches, or if you just walk through the bush after a nice wind, you're going to find all sorts of these on the ground. So you just collect them. You want to give them a little bit of dry, but you don't want to keep these for very long because they lose their volatile oils pretty quickly. So you want to use them within a couple of weeks is best, because they don't store long. But you just pop the needles off the branch like that, and then you grind them up in your mortar and pestle, or you can pop them in a coffee bean grinder and you can grind them up that way, and you get a much finer powder really fast as well. I actually have a very specific coffee bean grinder that I use just for this purpose. It doesn't get used for anything else but making loose incense. So the third ingredient that I use in this are poplar buds. So we harvest these in the spring, and when we harvest them, they're super sticky, so we have to let them dry. It's a kitty whisker, so I have to let them dry. And then we grind them up in there, and these smell heavenly. I call them the amber of Alberta, even though we have amber here in Alberta. I like the way they smell, and it reminds me of amber a little bit, so that's why I call them that. But they are not technically amber. So super simple, those 3 ingredients. And these are used, they're put together, they're ground, and then I use them as an offering to the ancestors. So spruce trees are known for their connection between the upper world and the lower world. So they work here as a psychopomp and the messenger between the worlds. And then the poplar buds, again, they're a tree of the dead, and they're just an honoring offer. So I put those 3 ingredients together, and that is Avalon's Grove's ancestor incense. So around here we have all sorts of things that I use in incense as well, and I'm going to talk about a couple of them really quickly. So we're in the late fall right now here, and so most things have lost their leaves, but roses are all over my property, and wild rose is something that I use in a lot of my magic. The petals make an amazing incense, but I encourage you that if you're going to go out and try and collect incense and figure out what you're going to do with the ingredients that you have around you, to test out not just the common things that you hear about. So take a tiny little bit of the wood and burn it. All of the wood smells differently, and they all hold the correspondence of those trees. So they're excellent for using in incense. And you can powder that wood down to the finest little powder, and it makes an excellent incense. You can use it for not just loose incense, but for making cones and sticks as well. The finer your powder, the easier that makes that. So we have roses. You can burn the rose hips as well. They have a totally different smell. So same with the spruce tree. You know, there's the bark, there's the inner bark. They both smell different as well when burnt. So I encourage everybody to go out and try different things. The forest floor right now, we've got all sorts of fallen leaves, and fallen leaves have a very unique smell. So when we're using them for incense at this time of year, it's great in your Mabon incense and your Samhain incense, because it brings back that scent of burning leaves that we get in the fall that most people are familiar with. So it's a great one in that type of incense. Also over here, we've got the last, this is the witch's butter, and it's a jelly fungi. But right now it's dry. So it's really good to take a little bit of this, and you can grind it up and use this in an incense as well. So this one here is used for two main things. It repels curses, so it's a really good one if you're going to be doing that type of protection work in an incense. But it's also used for the opposite. So it is used in baneful magic. So all around you, we have amazing resources, and I encourage you to go out and get to know your forest. So here's another great one here. So all throughout my forest, you're gonna find wizard's beard or witch's hair. It's got all sorts of lovely names. This is another great one that is used for purification magic, and it's also used in higher wisdom and knowledge magic, so bringing those things to yourself. So it's a good one if you want to use a connection to, at this time of year, to the ancestors. Burning a little bit of this with the intention of connecting with the wisdom of your ancestors is an amazing use for this. Black poplar tree. Poplar trees, especially black poplar trees, are trees of the dead. They are used for communication between the living and the dead as well. And we burn their little sticky buds. I usually harvest them in the spring when they're still sticky, but we were lucky enough to find a branch that had a bunch here. They're really dry, but they still smell really great when they burn. Of course, the more sticky they are, the more resin they have in them, and the more perfume you're going to get, the more aroma you're going to get. And it is a heavenly scent. So it carries messages from the living to the dead. Next, I want to talk about the Lady of the Woods, birch tree. So this is also known as a tree of the dead. And it, again, the wood, the young catkins, the leaves, fresh and dried naturally, the bark, all of these things can be used as natural incense in your incense blends, your loose incense blends. They all have a little bit different smell. One great thing about the birch bark is you can write messages on it before you shred it up for your incense. So you get that extra little oomph in there. You can use all sorts of sacred inks in that as well. Another thing you can do is you can just take the birch bark and then soak it in a potion, a combination of essential oils or a really strong brew that you've created. You can soak it in there and then let it dry and then use that as a vessel for incense as well. It's all a type of incense. So there's lots of wonderful ways to use lady birch in incense. The willow tree is another tree that's associated with the dead and ancestor work. It is a psychopomp tree spirit like the spruce tree is. And so it's great for sending messages to the other worlds or the other realm. It's a good one too for just general petitioning and communication. It has a long, long history with as being a tree of the dead. Also, the other couple trees that I wanted to mention. Oh, before I do that though, the willow tree, like any other tree, the bark, little tiny twig pieces, The leaves dried at different stages in the year, as well as the pussy willows can all be used as in incense. A couple other trees that I wanted to mention is the larch tree and the tamarack tree. They're both considered ancestor trees as well, and are great for this kind of work. And then there's the hazel tree, the hazelnut tree. If you practice a Celtic pantheon or a Northern European pantheon, my cat wants to be part of this video. The hazelnut tree has a connection with the ancestors, but in a very specific way. So if you're looking to seek the wisdom of your ancestors, add a little bit of a hazelnut shell, or a little bit of hazelnut, or a little bit of the tree to your incense blend as well, because it's really works well for connecting with that wisdom aspect. Also, dandelion, especially the root, is a great one for connecting with your ancestors. Not in incense, but you can use it in incense. But one of the greatest ways to do that is brew yourself up a great cup of dandelion root tea and leave it beside your bed for the night, with the intention of it being an offering to your ancestors. And they will come and they will communicate with you in your dreams. So not incense, but definitely related to our topic today. So listen to the trees around you. They are very deep and wise. They're connected to water, so there's an automatic connection to the other world there. Talk to them. Whisper to them and let the ancestors know what you want to say. You can do the same with water around you. When you're collecting your incense ingredients, keep this in mind for your ancestor incenses, and explore. You know, let's have a look at this tree trunk right here. We've got all sorts of fungi and lichen and moss that can be used as ingredients. This one here represents wisdom and knowledge. When we're talking about the ancestors here, I'm going to keep this to ancestor stuff here. So, connection to Gaia, you know, great deep moss there. Again, most mushrooms that you find can be used in incense. You just dry them out really well before you do that and break them up. When they're used as an incense, so mushrooms are great communicators, and they're old. They're super old spirits. Like, they are the first old spirits here on our planet. And so they know everything. And they take that information and they store it. So all of the things your ancestors saw, mushrooms know. And they are just wonderful givers as well. So they'll share that with you. And so I tell everybody to get out and connect with mushrooms. And that doesn't just necessarily mean eating mushrooms and foraging for mushrooms for medicine. Just sitting with mushrooms. That's it. Meditate with a mushroom. One thing that I forgot to mention earlier when I was talking about the incense that we make here at Avalon's Grove. With the loose incense, we burn it on charcoal, first of all. Secondly, with that particular recipe, I didn't give you proportions. So what they are is, for the spruce resin, it's 1 part. For the poplar bud, it's 1 part. And for the ground spruce needle, it's a 1/2 part. So you just mix them all up nice and evenly and burn that on charcoal. And it's a beautiful offering for the ancestors. We're doing any type of ancestor work, petitioning and whatnot. So I hope you've enjoyed our offering from Avalon's Grove. I hope you have a blessed Samhain.